You know what? To be perfectly honest, this watch annoys me. Why? I have read a few comments recently about how YouTube is a way too gushing and are not honest with their feedback and videos, since they get watches for free or get paid under the table, simply otherwise not being impartial. The reality is that what I earn off YouTube in a month wouldn't cover a motel room in country Victoria for one night, and that's fine. I'm not in it for the money. So whilst you sometimes do get to keep a watch, it's very rare. And for me personally, if I get to borrow one, I'm more than happy and I feel privileged to even get that. I mean, wouldn't any of you love to get a few weeks with a cool watch? It took me a year to build up the channel to that point, and leading up to that, I bought and sold and borrowed from friends, and I still do. So why does this watch annoy me? Well, the issue is that it's just so good. Not just for the money, but everything about it is so impressive that I have to really nitpick to find stuff that could be improved. This means that this review may come across as paid for, but it's not. Sergio was just kind enough to lend me one, and to make matters even more annoying, he's just one of the nicest guys you'll ever speak to, which I found out in my interview, which I'll link up here. So I can't even claim that the watch is awesome, but the guy behind it is not. For you, it's likely just down to personal taste if you'll buy one or not. And for me, it's just down to telling you about all the great aspects of the DRZ02R, which is going on pre-sale on the 15th of July with delivery by October 2023. So if you want up-close macro shots and 9 minutes or so of reasons why you should buy one, then I welcome you to keep watching. If you like what you see here today, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe. And whilst you do that, I'll jump straight into the sizes of the watch. The diameter is 39mm and the lug to lug is 44mm. It is quoted as 10.5mm thick, but I measure it at 11.5, which is still very slight. I don't think you'll be swapping up bracelets or straps here in a hurry, but at 20mm lug width, you absolutely can if you want. It's 149 grams in weight, and finally a 10 ATM water resistance. This dial is the hero, but kinda like Iron Man leads a team of heroes. The retro futuristic look is again incredibly hard not to fall for. Hard. I asked for this blue version for two reasons. The orange and grey and purple dials are so eye-catching and will be all over YouTube, but this blue and the black might be a little easier to live with every day. The blue dial has a circular brush and a fume design that means it gets darker the closer to the edges you go. It creates a bit of a vignette effect, which is a classic photography trick to draw the eye to where you want your audience to look. The long blue lines and indices are carved out from the top dial in a classic sandwich dial approach. And the lume, which I'll cover later, will not disappoint. The patterns on display are as beautiful as they are unusual, and somehow it works perfectly. A slightly more subtle feature is the sloping, almost bowl-like edges of the dial, with a very subtle minute track. This is a classic approach of Sergio's, and it's a detail that only an owner will discover over time, and perhaps now you on YouTube. The date complication is too small for me, and I would order this version without the date, which you can, and this is a theme that I'll come back to. If you want a date version, you can, but if you prefer this design without obvious interruptions to the overall sandwich, then you're also covered, and the only issue might be availability. The hands continue the theme of streamlined retro lines that are half skeletonized with lume applied. And the seconds hand continues another trademark of Dorenzo with its lume pip perfectly covering the round date complication once every 60 seconds. And to add some more showing off here, it follows the long blue lines perfectly. There is so much attention to detail here, and this probably explains why Dorenzo has absolutely rabid fans that are almost as bad as Zelos fans in their devotion to the brand. If I had to try hard to find something to whinge about, it would be that the legibility of the hands can suffer a tiny bit at times with the blue on blue. Moving on to the cushion style case, it's all brushed but with subtle polished corners. It is a lovely effect and it looks particularly gorgeous on the sides of the case with its concave slope. The crown has a color-coded lume pip, which is there for fun only, since do you really need to find your crown in the dark? Unless that's a euphemism, I'm gonna say no. This is for fun only. It's not a screw-down crown, but as mentioned, the 10 ATM water resistance mean you won't have to worry about anything in your daily life. The fixed bezel holds a flat sapphire crystal in place that has a reasonable amount of AR coating. This is also a good time to point out that both the case and the bracelet has HV800 scratch resistant coating, so your watch will look pristine for a long time to come. If you ever have trouble sleeping, I would recommend googling a HV800 scratch resistant coating, and that will put you right back to sleep. On the back of the watch, another flat sapphire glass covers the Sellita SW200-1 Elaboré movement with its sign roller. It's obviously an excellent choice, and it's a nice bonus to get a slightly upgraded version of the movement, where you should see accuracy of around ±7 seconds a day. Again, a great feature. Power reserve will come in at roughly 38 hours. This bracelet deserves some time. It tapers from around 28mm in mid in the case, all the way down to 18mm. However, the section that's attached to the case is a standard 20mm. You would normally expect a pin and collar for this sort of bracelet design, but not here. It's screw pins all the way, including half links. Also, if you're not a fan of scissor clasps, guess what? Sergio throws in a folding clasp that's also branded. Despite having clearly an optimal design for the case, should you want to change the bracelet out, it has quick release spring bars. Another very clever design feature is that the polished mid links are ever so slightly recessed, which means that the brushed parts will take the majority of the bumps, so even with the scratch resistance, it's even more likely to stay pristine from clever design alone. So much like the dial and case, there is so much more than meets a casual early glance. And this is somebody that has clearly refined and re-refined his designs many times. The excellent and fun lume speaks for itself, so I don't have to. The DRZ02R, which stands for reduced by the way, is a refined version of an early design that's long sold out and was a fan favorite. Many of us have been hanging out for its return and how good it is to see it back. The asking price at pre-sale is around $770 which is incredible value for what you're getting. Not only does it put many established brands to shame, it also sets the bar even higher yet again for what a microbrand can achieve. For those of us that love microbrands, it becomes harder and harder to justify spending several $1,000s more to own a watch simply for the brand that's slapped on the dial. I would even argue here that Dorenzo is becoming a strong brand in itself, and if only the general watch buying public knew what they could get for the money and understood how well it measures up to some of the fancier brands in the $3,000 to $5,000 range, they will go Dorenzo every single time. Acquisitions happens all the time in the tech industry that I work in. Usually since somebody has one or several ideas that there's no longer any point in trying to compete with, but rather just buy them out and absorb them into the fold. I don't think Sergio would ever do this, but if he was making software or high-tech parts for the computer industry, he'd already be a multi-million-dollar brand absorbed into one of the larger operators. Should the Swatch Group buy Dorenzo? Well, I would if I was them, and that's the highest compliment I could give, I think. Meanwhile, I think we are super lucky in getting to support an independent designer that kicks goals and keeps his products attainable for us mere mortals. So there's a gushing review finished, and now I'll pack this up and send it back to Sergio. But know that I do this reluctantly. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.